All right, thank you everyone for attending today. I did put a handout a second or two ago, maybe a little pop out that you can see for the KB article that you're looking at here on my screen. But all of you keeping score at home, certainly you can kind of follow along with this or even bookmark this. This is definitely a knowledge-based article on our website that can also be fished out of, kb.verify.com. But again, this article will give you the walkthrough on how to import blocks because there are definitely a few different ways and styles to go ahead and do such. But we do have an import wizard. Of course, someone can also walk through and just manually create a block on the fly. We'll kind of cover all of those in today's session. And certainly, again, as John made mention, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get those answered in due time. All right, so this knowledge-based article within Verify for our DNDID management or dial plan management purple module is certainly how we will entertain and import blocks of DIDs for call manager, and we'll get into a little breadcrumb of the team's block imports towards the latter half of this call or this session here. But essentially, this KB is going to walk us through what we need to do, options to go ahead and import DID blocks into the interface. There is a configure option here that we're going to get into. So within DN or DID, mainly we're focusing on DID here. DID management is going to offer options to search by kind of different locations and certainly the DID block range numbers that are procured from the providers for the environments. So what we need to do is go ahead and configure blocks so that we can go ahead and use this search functionality. Now, again, this KB, and I'll probably jump back and forth to this, will list out and kind of walk you through exactly how to go ahead and look at our CSV template that can be turned around and imported into the software, so that no one has to sit here and manually create the DID block, kind of block by block, if you will. So definitely a bulk import option. And then there's a file that comes with this that we will get into. So let's just first start out with looking at the interface here very briefly. So as I made mention, DID management and importing of these blocks is certainly the criteria for today's session. But how do we do that? Or maybe why is that needed necessarily? So the layout here is going to be search functionality for kind of individual as well as multi location platform options as well. So whether or not we have multiple call managers within an environment, Teams tenants as well as a part of those as well. So there's definitely going to be different options to go ahead and search by locations and search by those individual sites or bulk or maybe multiples. So we'll certainly come back to that. But until we can entertain, pardon me, until we are able to entertain this section right here, we do need to do some preliminary work. And that is definitely why there is a configure option over here on the right. So I'll just leverage that right now. So this is a lab I certainly share with my peers here on our side of the fence. So there's already some breadcrumbs here that are already defined. I'm going to make this very kind of on the fly kind of a build out here, and I'll kind of build out some dummy stuff. But some of the backbone definitely for the DID or dial plan number inventory reporting and managing from this module here are derived around these two options right here, mainly DID sites and DID blocks. There is a kind of a parent-child relationship. So sites, if you will, are going to be the parent, if you will, or the parent container or the higher level container out of these two, let's just say. The DID blocks roll up into the sites for that search functionality that we just saw on the previous page. Now, first things first, if you're brand new to Verify or if you're brand new to this module, again, it will need some configuration love. So here we are in the configure section. Now, the sites themselves, that is kind of one preliminary. Now, as you can certainly see here in this lab environment, I've got multiple sites already defined by myself and my peers. So whether or not we're naming site locations as by city location or by state or some type of organizational acronyms, et cetera. Certainly, the labeling of the DID site names is certainly up to you. Now, within the sites themselves, and I'll build one here just quickly on the fly so that we can have something tangible to run with, because I certainly have some examples that we will use to import, as well as referencing it to the call manager I'm communicating with. Now, as we can see here, I will create a quick site. I'm just going to simply call this just Matt site test. Not too far away from my last name, I guess. But the description, the address, the city, state, province, and all the address information is not needed. It's not a prereq. Let's just say that the name label of the site under creation is certainly a prereq. We can look at the blocks once we have this kind of catered to. At the moment, I don't have any selected blocks underneath the mat site that I'm about to create. Yes, the system I'm working on right now, again, already has some breadcrumbs of some blocks and some other things that have already been created. We're not even going to entertain those. So first things first, I'm just going to create a dummy site. Now, you definitely have the options. Certainly, if you have those humongous laundry list of DIDs, that you're managing in a spreadsheet, because certainly at the end of the day, this whole management module here aims to replace the need for that working spreadsheet. Because if not, updated, maintained effectively and efficiently in a timely manner, it gets stale and maybe unreliable at best. Within Verify, you don't have that because as soon as we have these configured, we're going out to the horse's mouth and kind of pulling brass tacks for number assignment, registration status, as well as the availability of these DIDs and DNs. Okay, so now we have our mat site test. Okay, good to go. But now we need to create some DID blocks. So I'm going to go into the DID block section. Yes, I already have those breadcrumbs are already there, but let's just go with today's content, and we're looking at a site for mat site test. Okay, completely barren, no blocks defined. Certainly, I already have my call manager up and running here. So if I needed to do a cross comparison, I can certainly look at the directory numbers or the phone lists or the device lists within call managers to identify what maybe the assigned devices, what the extension numbers are, or the DNs, if you will. Certainly, you can entertain that. Another side example, real briefly, I was going to advocate for this, is going to be the DN management. So the DN management, which we're really not going to cover today, but this is pretty much a quick search lookup in the call manager. Just needs number input, but it's definitely predicated on the 3 status options of available, inactive, and active. So I'm just running this over the 1000 range right here. You can certainly cross compare with what I've got in call manager if needed to, but certainly you could lean on the DN management as your kind of lookup without having to dive into call manager, because all the directory numbers are here for this 1000 range. Reds are going to be actives. These dim looking ones are going to be unassigned. Certainly we can see their status options there. Then the green guys down below in this 1000 range are going to be green and available. These again certainly could be potential for new hiring directory number programmabilities, or a contiguous set of DNs that we want to assign for this, that, or the other, or how you want to provision them. Suffice to say, at the end of the day, if they're green, means there is no definition, nor has there been one in call manager as it sits. Okay. So now we'll hop back over to the configure section, which the configure section is only for the DID management piece. So we have our kind of dummy mat site test built. Now, I do want to preface this that now, while we definitely have the import option, which we're going to walk through in a moment or two here, this can certainly be built out in a couple of different ways. Now, having a DID site within Verify, again, is definitely a prereq to load up blocks and or import blocks underneath the site. Now, if you have that master sheet, you have a couple different options. Do you know that you have maybe 10 different sites that you want to kind of create as those parent containers, if you will? Do we need to add another 9 for LA, New York, Houston, Chicago, Traverse City? I mean, a couple different options that you have there, but you can preload all of those and pre-build those, and then you would have the option to maybe entertain your bulk sheet, but maybe take excerpts out of that. Maybe if the 1000 range, 2000 range belong to Boston, maybe 3 to 4000, go to Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. So you can certainly take excerpts out of your your master sheets, your master list, if you will, throw them into an additional sheet using our column headers, which we'll get into in a second, and then kind of site by site, import those corresponding blocks, which certainly you can have multiple NPA NXXs or area code and exchanges in different DID blocks rolling up to the same site. So that's certainly viable as well. But the Verify import wizard will be smart enough to create blocks draped around, obviously, the area code and exchanges significantly. They won't obviously cross blend with another NPA NXX. They will be kind of siloed in their own block. But certainly we have the option to go ahead and dictate what those number ranges of inclusion are. And there's a couple different manners to do such. Now, I just want to walk through very briefly. If I want to create a block on the fly manually, again, that can certainly be done. The sheets definitely will give you a more tangible option to go ahead and do it much swifter if you have those sheets created. Okay, but if we're creating a block from the ground up, we can give it a name label. It could be the numeric NPA NXX or the area code and exchange. Um, Conversely, in the import wizard, will automatically assign the name of the block as the area code and exchange with the, I think, a description of imported block or something along those lines. Now, description, provider, and circuit trunk ID are not part of the import routines. So that information would not be getting written in during the import routine, which is a pretty simplistic template for the import. You'll see in a moment. But again, you can always circle back to these and and polish and update the descriptions and the provider circuit information if necessary. Now, since we definitely a prereq is definitely to assign a site to it. Oh, again, let's call this mapped block test. Okay, so again, more cosmetic stuff right here. Definitely needs a name label as a prereq for manually creating the block. Will need to call upon one of the sites. So whether or not you already have built out your 10 sites that you have, those containers that you do want them to be, you can certainly select one. You can select multiple if those block ranges are servicing multiple sites. You can certainly do that. But you definitely the prereq creating a block manually need to have the name label for the block. Need to have a selected site for it. Those are pretty much the prereqs from the initial settings for manual block creation. Now, we will not need to entertain all these wrenches on the left, but we will definitely do the top three. Now, number info. Number info is going to be the number range of the block procured from the provider. I'll pick on 773. I'll just pick a fake exchange here, and then maybe I'm looking at 3,000 to, I don't know, 3050 as an example. Certainly, I can put that in there, and then I'll go ahead and I'll have to associate it first. But once we save this, it's only going to lock in these 5051 numbers right here within this map block test DID block. Okay. Now, we can certainly exclude numbers if we need to, meaning if we don't own the whole contiguous 51 number range right here, certainly on the fly, you can create those exclusions, maybe, I don't know, 3010 to 3020 as an example. We don't own those. Certainly, you can manually manually do that on the fly. However, the import wizard will do that automatically for you. So that's why that's a very probably better option, but I'm just kind of giving a little background assimilation here. Now, the third wrench from a column manager block association within Variphy, we definitely will need to select the column manager, which we're going to attribute this block to. In my lab case, I'll pick on the Colorado cluster. Definitely need to lock this in with the green plus to add the platform, because this page right here, this little box, is how we're going to perform all of the mapping. Now, whether this is a manual like we're doing right here, or whether it is an import using the import wizard, we will need to entertain some association. So we'll see the screen again once we go through the import wizards. Now, but even from that though, regardless of which option that you're doing, so there's going to be options for mapping the directory numbers to the DIDs. Now, in this example here, I'm keying off of this number range, this DID range here. So keying off of all those 51 contiguously. Now, in my call manager, let's see here, we are using, in this lab call manager, we're using 4-digit internal directory numbers or extensions. So that's kind of what some good to know, but certain environments are going to be different. Your directory numbers could be of the 5-digit length, 7-digit length, 10-digit length, maybe 11s, maybe they're full E164s with the plus ones. So you definitely have those options. Now, in my lab here, I've only got 4 digit characters, pardon me, 4-character directory numbers. So I'm simply just going to set this to be the number 4. Essentially, what this DN digit match count is the X most right characters of the line number that we're going to match on. So from the full DID numbers like this, mapping them to the 4-digit internal directory numbers is essentially what we're doing here with this digit match count. Now, there certainly could be times where as an example, there is, well, let's pull up my call manager, where as an example, I'm using 4 digits, but maybe it's a 5-digit variety. Maybe there's a 1 prepended here. So I have 11,000, 11,001 as an example. Well, I'm not easily going to be able to kind of map the rightful or the 5 most characters to those to the DID number, because the DID number may or may not have that 1 numeric in the exchange as an example, that fifth number, I guess, to the from the right to the left. So certainly what we can do here is we can use prefixes. So in that example, I just kind of, poor use case I just did use, we can also include a prefix to say, okay, site code prefix on the DN that we're mapping to is a 1, then map the foremost right numerics, if you will, on the directory number that we're reading from Call Manager. That would that would net us the 5-digit extensions from Call Manager, and then also kind of assign them to the, again, the DID range that we're employing here in this configuration. Now, we definitely have route partitions that you can certainly select from the drop list. Most of the time, I do have to be honest, everyone's probably using the blanket option of the any route partition, which is normally what I do. Um, so to each their own, whether or not you want to onesie, twosie these, you certainly may for different blocks or multiple partitions. You can certainly do that again, or you can certainly blanket them with all or any. Now, there'll be some other options called DN mapping exceptions. I'll get into those in a second because it'll make more sense as I kind of talk through and work through it, and I even kind of reference the knowledge base article. But just as an example, I'll drop that off. I will go ahead and save this very briefly. So now I have my first block here, my first DID block underneath the mat site test. We can see the number range right here, the 3000 to 3050. Again, the 51 numbers. Now, if I wanted to, I can go into the DID management, because this all should be mapping again to my directory numbers in Call Manager. So now going back to the search. Now again, the search and DID management is aimed for a couple different folds, from sites to being able to look at onesie twosie sites or onesie twosie blocks as an example within maybe the Chicago site. Maybe I want to look at only this block. Maybe I only want to look at that block as an example, or maybe I want to look at all of them. So you definitely have options to go ahead and do such. But let's go ahead and pick on the mat test site. Now, the mat test site only should have the one block that we just manually created here. Now, on the imports, these will inherit automatically, kind of do the numeric naming convention of the NPA NXX or the area code and exchange. And certainly the search function is going to be predicated around the status options that you can certainly turn on or off, available, inactive, or active. There is going to be a search box over here on the far left as well. This is going to give us it's going to search the line number. So the four most right characters of the DID number we refer to as the line number. So the max right here is only 4 characters. Now you can put in a specific search like I just did right there, or you could maybe even put in wildcards. So you can certainly use single character X's as wildcards, or you can certainly just throw a single X in there, and it will search again the whole block. But now the block that we had already provisioned in the configure section has 3000 to 3050. So this search is only going to cover the 51 numbers that I have built out in that block for this site. Now I'm running a quick view results right here. I'm only listing out 25. I probably want to do a little bit more than that. Actually, I'll go 500. I'll max this out. We'll rerun this. So now when the results will return, it's only going to be, again, for 51 rows that we're seeing here, even though I'm telling the page to allow for more than that. But again, we can certainly see, pardon me, this is the wrong slider, what's being mapped here. So we can see now, this is going to be for Teams. But again, the platform is Call Manager. We can see 3000 through 3050. If they're red, they are most certainly active, certainly mentioned here by the DID status option. But then also the corresponding directory number in Call Manager that it's mapping to, the platform name within Variphy, and also some other intricate information for the style of device, the partition, the assigned devices that are actually on this DID or DN. So we can see here's my buddy Dan Schmidt's jabber. You can see Derek, and I can see Brian. They're all red. We know they're active. These are on devices. This also covers hunt pilots. It covers translation patterns, route points. So even if it was a translation pattern, one in here. Do I have one at the bottom? Survey says no. Okay. But also, if it was a translation pattern, the mask would also show up here as well. So this is pretty easy to kind of go ahead and kind of fetch that pretty easily. We built this manually from the ground up, but I'm going to delete this and go about it in a different manner. So now let's go ahead and jump back to the configure section, because I did do this manually, and I know we want to test kind of the importing function. So I'll get rid of this block. Now we have the wizard here. Let's go take a look at the wizard. So now there is a template here that's offered for you as well. You can certainly click on that, and that will give you, and of course the KB. Let's pull that up. That will give you a CSV that looks like this. Very simplistic. Only has 5 columns within it. Looks something along these lines right here. Yep, so this guy right here. So let me just go ahead and shrink this guy up. Now you can certainly take this. You can save this. You can also, obviously. Choose to cut big ranges, if you will, or sections out of your master list and pop those right into this template here. Save it, call it DID block for X, Y, and Z, or the mat block test, or whatever location or ranges that you're looking to import. Now, as you can see the KB here in the background, the only thing that's really required is going to be row 1 and column A. Now, the other 4 are certainly going to be optional, those columns, but you have different ways to kind of go ahead and attack this, if you will. Now, you can certainly use the column A and put in all the numbers that you actually own. Now, they may or may not be contiguous. Maybe they are. If they're contiguous, maybe you want to use column B so you don't have to rattle all these numbers off on down in column A. Now, in Excel, probably pretty easy to go ahead and just use column A anyways, but there's different options if you wanted to just use a start and end DID range option. So looking in the KB here, that's kind of this one is certainly advocating off of just feeding it column A, telling us all of the numbers that you do own that are supposed to be in this block, or multiple blocks. So the import wizard is going to be smart enough to create blocks based off the area code and exchange, or the NPA NXX. So don't think you can only have to do the 415604s in one sheet, and then you need the 405704s in another sheet. No, you can have them in the same exact sheet because new blocks will be created predicated off of those NPA NXXs. Now, you definitely have the options for ranges, as I made mention. So if you own the whole 5500 range or the whole 28 to 2900 range, et cetera, or a small variation within a certain range, 1110 to 1350 as an example. So 240 or so numbers, you definitely have those options as well. Then we'll get into the mapping exceptions. So let's walk through a few of these examples right here, because I definitely have a few that are lined up for us. So if I can get my bearing straight here, I do have one that I created a little earlier here. Again, very similar to kind of what the KB shows, pretty much just hammering home all of the numbers that I do own in column A. Again, it is the only column that is required. Yes, you can certainly side here. You can certainly polish up the platform name and the partitions as well. However, you can do most of that from the the wizard as well. So let's take this for a lap. So we'll jump back over into here and we'll use this range here. So I've already got the template. I already have something loaded in it. So we're going to go to the import option. Now, whether this is US or North America or an international number plan as well, certainly we have options for both. Just have to make sure that the number ranges within the sheet that you're importing are in line as well. So I believe the knowledge base does speak to that somewhere as well. Where is that at? Right here. So yeah, so non-US or non-North America kind of dialing plans that are not going to be 10-digit or could be much lengthier than that, as long as we have the start, as long as we have the numbers or the range. Certainly either or could be beneficial there for you as well on this import function. Now we're going to just pick away with an easy peasy one. This will be North America. I will perform a quick little lookup into the individual numbers right here. I have a couple examples here for us. We're going to go ahead and open that. That is going to be my import sheet that we just saw a second ago. Again, using the MAT site test. And then we'll scroll down here. We will have the association option. So that is definitely why I kind of left that one off of course, it should send to the wrong page. This one. Yeah. So again, we can certainly populate the partitions in here or the platform name if you wanted to, but you can certainly do that in the wizard here. Thusly why those columns are optional in the sheet. Now, I'm going to use the Colorado cluster here in my lab system. Definitely need a plus in the platform because this is where we will perform the mappings. So similar to what you saw before. Now, knowing that my lab, again, or my call manager lab only has 4-digit extensions, this mapping of 4 most right characters is what I need. Don't need a prefix, but again, there's definite documentation or steps in that in the KB article to kind of get you acclimated with that. Again, you can certainly choose your partition from here as well. So again, you don't need to populate column D in that sheet. But again, just want to blanket that. Again, you can do that right from here. So now we have association to this call manager of Colorado. We are blanketing any partition. So we should not need to entertain these additional columns of D and E right here. Now, the range end, if we're using the contiguous numbers or the numbers that you do own in these ranges or these DIDs, if it's onesie, twosie, or they're all over, that's completely fine. At least those are the numbers that you do own. And certainly the Verify Import Wizard will auto-create exclusions for ones that are not in this list in column A. But again, if you can get away with ranges, certainly that's a different flavor of option as well. Now, using that sheet you just looked at, we're going to click the Import button. And we just went and imported 51 numbers right there. In my sheet, I was using 1000 to 1050. So similar to the last one, we just went right through. I will go ahead and close this. That'll bring me to the DID blocks page. Now, again, it will be illuminated in green right there, but let's just whittle this down so only I'm looking at my new stuff here. So there is a new block I just imported. There's 51 total numbers. Nothing was excluded because I had the contiguous numbers all the way down from 1000 to 1050 in column A. Again, if I had an omission, the the import wizard would have been smart enough to identify that maybe I don't know, 1040 to 1049 were not in column A in that sheet. It would have created those, those 10 exclusions, and then obviously would have had a numeric of 10 in here to give us the heads up about that. Okay. So now this should look very similar to kind of what we were walking through earlier. Again, it is going to have the naming convention of the NPA NXX as the block name. The description will be import block. The wizard does put that in there for us. Again, a route of this should look pretty straightforward to what we just entertained in the previous couple of moments. But now we have the option to go ahead again and then go into DID management. Now I have a block called 312777. I've already done this a couple of times, but we can go ahead and search that. Again, do I want to put in maybe 10? Again, I could use wildcards. So maybe I only want 1000 through 1009 as an example. Can do that like right here, or can do a single X there and it'll search all the 51 numbers here. We'll go ahead and we'll view these results. And now we're looking at these numbers right here. Again, they are mapped. We can see 1000, 1000. This is kind of the easy representation of just 4 to 4 from the DID number to the internal directory number within Column Manager. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. If you wish to inline tag something, you certainly may. We'll call this Matt test tag. So you can do that onesie twosie. You can have multiple tags on individual DIDs within this lookup here as well. But also from the configure section, you can block range tag a whole bunch of numbers at once. Okay. Now, again, all the information for these devices is going to be read from Call Manager. So again, the assigned devices, the status of the directory number in Call Manager, and the corresponding sites and block names that we've defined within Variphy. Now, you definitely have a show hide columns option. If you don't wish to choose all of these options, you can certainly pick and pull out or add in what's needed or resort as needed. MS Teams will be a little different, where it's actually using a lot more of these column headers that we'll get into in a second with some breadcrumbs that I do have. But now let's just kind of, with haste here, I suppose I've been talking too long. Let's go ahead and import a few others. Now, using the import option, again, I'm going to import some more. It is going to be US. Now, I'll pick on a different one. I'll pick on a range option. Of course, the same range there, but let's go with the 1000 as another example. Now, this example, let's see, I should have a shorter one here somewhere. Of course, that one's different. Nope, don't need that. Too many ducks. Of course, now I don't have what I'm looking for. Let me pull this one up. Oh, that is it. Duh. Okay, so here's just this very, very simplistic for the 1000 range I did here. I did it from 1000 to 1030. The same exact steps I did with the contiguous numbers and being in column A. But again, if you have a nice wide range, if you own 1000 to 5000 as an example, probably easier just to use the column B as opposed to littering all those numbers contiguously on down the page in column A. So different options. So I'll go ahead and again just select Mat test here. We're doing the same kind of number range there, and we'll go ahead and we'll import this. And I didn't select a platform. Okay, good use case right there. I kind of skipped over that. It was down there. Good thing it is safeguarded. And maybe I'll pick on this one to be Mexico City just so they're a little different. Add platform there. And then again, the mapping exceptions. Again, I get to cheat and go with the 4 most right characters here. I don't need any site prefixes. Some other clienteles and environments will. Maybe you need E164. If it's E164, then you're probably going to need rightmost mappings of probably 10 or 11 characters. So there'll be different times that you'll need to kind of entertain that. But again, in my lab, I get to do this one easy peasy. We'll go ahead and we'll import that. Now another one imported here underneath the Mat site test. That is there. And again, I'll just key off Mat site test. The green one is the newly imported one. But again, this one is just a kind of an ease of use to go ahead and show the number range right there. This one being a contiguous, column A, row, I guess cell by cell, if you will, and this one actually being a range. So either option is certainly viable. But then let's go ahead and just delete this one. But then you'll have other options. So there's going to be other styles of numbers that you do need to import. So let's get into the nitty gritty here. So as an example, where'd it go? Over here. So I have another range as well. So now looking at this one, so now there's going to be times where your DID numbers do not map down nice and neat to the directory numbers in Call Manager that are actually, these lines are rolling down to. So as an example here, this toll-free line is an example ending with 9,000, but it truly maps down to a DN of 2,300. There's no way for me to uh, to massage that nice and easy. So this is another optional column. These are what's referred to as DN mapping exceptions. So I can, because again, there's no way for me to map 9,000 or that number down to 2,300, but I can tell the import wizard, hey, for this number range for 9,000 to whatever I have in here, that 2,300 is going to get mapped to this one that ends in 9,000. So essentially, that's what we're going to use that column. So that way, again, we don't need column B here because we're going to give the numbers that we own and the numbers that they're going to map to. Because if they can't map with X most right characters like we were doing in the first two routines, then we kind of need to use a DN mapping exception, which can be done manually, but I would rather have the import wizard do that. So now we'll take this for a spin here. We're going to go ahead and import that guy. Go ahead and browse to my sheet there. And this one's going to be with the mapping exception. So I'm doing the 2,300, got an extra O and 0 in there. There's my import sheet. Again, I'm going to go with the site test. And then we'll go ahead. If I clicked import, it would yell at me. Exactly. Got to map a platform. So I'll go pick on Colorado again here. We'll plus that in. Again, I don't need to worry about, since those all have mapping exceptions, I don't necessarily need to worry so much about the digit match count. I will leave it as is right now because there could be a mixed bag where maybe some of those line numbers actually do, maybe there is a 9,010 or a 9,011 through 12 that are 9010 and they're not of the 2,300 variety kind of littered in here as well. So there could certainly be different use cases for these DIDs. So I will leave my mapping of 4. I will blanket any route partition, and now I will import. Now, if we ran into any error messages, maybe you had some bad syntax in there or a letter as opposed to a numeric, certainly these results would be called out, and that would be kind of highlighted in red for certainly what wasn't in the legal character input, let's just say. Now I've got my 51 here, 9,000 to 9050. We'll click close on that. Again, from a managerial view, we can certainly look at the site test, because I know I got thrown towards the bottom because of the numerics. So there it is right there. We see it here. It's not going to show any mapping exceptions, but if I go into this, based off of column C of the CUCM DN mapping column there with the 2,300 number ranges, I should see those in the number info, in the platform association. So as we saw, I had 9,000 mapped to 2,300. This is column C from the import sheet. Pull that back to the forefront right here. So this is certainly column C. So as you can certainly see here, we did blanket any and all. So this is certainly the way for mapping directory, DID numbers that don't map easily, numerically to the internal directory number. If it's of the 4 or 5 digit variety, certainly this is going to be the best option for you. So now we can see all those down here. I think I've got them all the way down to 50. But again, different prefixes on the DN number. So again, I can certainly go ahead and search those. Now I can go into the DID management. Now the mat site test has this one block here, but now I have the new block I just imported. So I can click both blocks. I could blanket this toggle to call on both of them, or I could select them individually or at both at the same time. I'll just run with the one. Let's just clear this out with a single X. Now we'll go ahead and we'll view results right here. Come on now. So for these 51 numbers, again, 888, 250, 9,000 is the range, and we'll see the corresponding directory numbers that they do map to. Now is not the time for this. Come on, let's pick it up a little bit here. But I will get the table view here of the results in a minute for the 51 numbers. Again, laden by the status option of available will be green, the active ones will be red, and the inactive unassigned ones will be kind of dim looking, if you will. They'll have a white background with just black text. And okay, seems to be the issue here. Also, once we have kind of tags built out and things of that nature, so that you can also search by tags, but also those tags can have kind of different naming conventions on them. So as an example here for the 9,000 range, I must have imported this underneath the wrong platform. Must be why. Okay, this is probably from Mexico City. All right, so full pop by me, but I can certainly come right back to the block. I can delete the block. I'll go right back to the import, go back to my sheet. Mapping exceptions right there. At site test, scroll down. I'll go with Mexico City because I selected the wrong cluster. And again, we have the mapping exceptions already in there, but I will leave this alone with the 4, but blanket any route partition there. Go ahead, those were imported. Rock and roll, that'll be down here green towards the bottom, or I can select my site and filter off of that and just look at the blocks that are associated to the MAT site test. Going back to the DID management search, okay, we'll search for that. And then I'll just pick on the 888 block right here. Go ahead and view those results. And these should now be mapped to the corresponding 2300 variety that I have in this lab as well. Sorry, logged me out. Never mind. So in a manner of seconds or so here, we should have this um, laid out here for us. So a couple different ways, as I made mention at the beginning. So you can certainly perform this kind of block by block if we want to, but from your master sheets, you also do, as an example, like this MAT site test. If you wanted to, you certainly could have taken your whole master sheet and then imported them all underneath one site. Yes, we'd have a whole boatload of different DID blocks, but what you can also do then is after they're imported, you can actually even go into the block and update its site. Meaning if you didn't have a chance and you want to get everything imported and just kind of shoehorn underneath, a very general site, you can certainly circle back after the blocks are imported, create additional sites, then go into the block and assign them with the corresponding DID site that you want to have them, fall underneath. And I completely missed the mark on this one here, but okay, here's a 23 as an example. Okay, so again, we're mapping here. 9023 does not easily map down to 2023, so that's the directory kind of number mapping exception here that certainly took place. But just to my point further, as I was mentioning, again, let's go back to the MAT site test. Okay, this could be the generic kind of container or site that we're shoehorning the master list into. And then you've got, 20, 30 blocks that are on this page. Then you definitely can come back and circle back after you slide next door and create the corresponding DID sites, Boston, Charleston, Tallahassee, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly then you can come back into the block at the block level from the settings and call upon the site that you wish to attribute that to. Okay, I want this block to be attributed to the Boston site or the Chicago site or multiples, but I want to get it away from the generic one. So you certainly will have those options because, again, once you kind of right size the sites and the blocks, mainly the blocks, and get all those imported and gussied up, then once you come to the management search function, again, then you can do multiple things. You can search by location individually, and then maybe I want, bad example, let's go with Chicago. You could certainly look at Chicago, and maybe I want all the DID sites that roll to the Chicago site, but maybe I just want to onesie twosie some of these blocks individually. Or maybe I want to look enterprise-wide for all the config parameters for these DID sites and blocks. So we can certainly collapse on all sites, collapse on all blocks, and then if you needed a number search, you could, or you could search it wildcard option as well. The good thing about this is Variphy is only going to search within the bookends of the line ranges that have been implemented into the blocks. So we're not going to search anything outside of the number ranges that have already been catered to and imported or manually created. Okay. So in that manner, then you definitely have the option to go ahead and, again, tag things. There are going to be breadcrumb tags of things that have been previously built. But as an example, if I want to tag on something or search on something specifically, you can search on that. You can definitely inline tag. You can go to the block itself as well. And if you wanted to, you can range tag things. So if I wanted to blanket them all for, let's go with 9,000 to 9010, and we'll just call this Connor line. I don't know. We'll run with that. You can certainly save that. And if you go back to the search function, then the tags will show up in a matter of seconds once we rerun the search, even if they're available or inactive. So I know I'm getting a little long-winded here, so I do want to stop. And John, do we have any questions or concerns from the audience members? I could go on for another 20 minutes if needed.
Yeah, no, no, we don't have any questions, and a fantastically thorough job. Once these results come back, I'll pull the share back to my computer, and we'll see who won our weekly webinar prize.
Okay. Yeah, this is just running a little sluggish because this is a one of my under-provisioned labs that I'm kind of using for this kind of demonstration here. But in a matter of seconds, hopefully this should bring back, and then we should see, Connor line kind of block tag to at least I think the first 10 or 11 or so numbers in this range off this block. There we go, sliding on down. And then, yeah, so here have all the Connor lines here. Again, these are all available, but can also inline tag these as well. Now, there's also an export option I do want to wrap with here. Now, while you can certainly search sites and blocks, onesie, twosie, or enterprise-wide, don't get me wrong, but you will have the option to go ahead and export all this information out to a PDF or a sheet. Now, what this will do for you, and I'll just backpedal here, will give you the option to go ahead and identify kind of the summarization level. Now, you don't necessarily have to have everything kind of jam-packed in here like my PDF's about to be in a second, but I will just give this as a look-see. So now whether or not we're running an export from the DID section here for multiple sites, multiple call managers, multiple ranges, all the block ranges can be included in here, but certainly at the site and or the block level, you'll see in a moment or so, the classification is going to be around their status options. How many numbers do we have that are available in green? How many that are inactive, unassigned, need to be cleaned up and or repurposed? And or how many are the red ones that are actively signed and registered on devices within the environment? So you can certainly have that, but then you can have, as you can see on mine, I've got 600 some odd pages here. May not need all this, but it's going to break it down by those three classifications again, available, inactive, or active. And the active ones will certainly have a lot more breadcrumbs like this than the non-actives do. So the active ones will certainly have directory numbers, devices assigned to them, and translation masks and stuff like that. Alerting names and descriptions will more further than the available ones or the inactive ones. So definitely a lot of options to kind of do the onesie twosie, but also kind of get the bulk enterprise kind of exported, and plenty of options to kind of to teeter with the summarizations as well. Or if we don't need line by line, can certainly turn that off, and then it's a 2-3 page high level export for you. That's about all I've got now for John. Take us home.
All right. Yeah, I've learned quite a few things this afternoon myself. So hopefully the attendees are in the same uh, learning category as me.
Yep.
I'll go ahead